So the final stint of today is from our retained employment law and HR lawyer. It's somebody known to all of you, if you've been before, the mighty Luke Menzies.
Box friends, hello. I'm going to have to tell Tim to stop this nonsense. It's quite embarrassing now coming out of the stage. Tim, stop it. You're bad enough last time. Hi everyone, it's great to see you all. It's a big old room, isn't it? Hope we're all well. I will try and fit with my 5 minutes. Here is a picture of my telephone, as I always say, and this is the phone that is plugged in purely to the hotline for the SPA. So I know some of you use this. We are absolutely perfect for all of your businesses in terms of your legal needs and your sort of higher level HR needs. So please do make more use. I think you probably know, but I'm going to bore you anyway in case there's anyone new here, that you get 15 minutes of me free per issue per day. I mean, which is an absolute slice of joy into your lives, which really you shouldn't be missing out on as part of your SPA membership. And then we have a very, very good value discounted rate. I mean, it's ridiculous how good it is. We've had a few more members use us than this year, in 2022 than before, which is great. So it's steadily creeping up. And some heavy users in here who I very much enjoy. Not to say that they've got, they're more than their fair share of problems, but just these things come along like buses. There'll be nothing for years and then 2 or 3 things. So please make use of your wonderful, wonderful service that comes part of your membership, and do use us. So I've been getting lots of fantastic calls and emails from you recently, and just to remind you of what's coming down the pipe to me from people like you. We've had recent advice given about shop floor rule breaking. We've had an alcoholic employee who had to be breathalyzed and I think eventually disciplined. Increasingly mental health issues are coming up, which I'm going to talk about a bit more in detail in a minute. We had an immigration visa issue. We've got a business immigration consultant, so should you ever have an issue there, let us know. And we've advised on a settlement agreement recently where someone needs to be exited and it needs to be a deal because there's a little bit of legal risk around it. And any of you use settlements occasionally, settlement agreements to exit people? Do please come and talk to us, or at least get a quote from us. Make use of your significant SPA members discount rather than just going to the same old place that you may go. So today I'm going to start off with talking about employers' mental health. Now, I'm sure many of you here manage people. Who is a line manager of some people here? Hands up, please. Yeah. Majority, I think. So a recent research published in Forbes magazine tells us that 69% of people who answered that, this was on many thousands across the world, this survey, 69% feel their boss has a greater effect on their mental health than anyone else. What does that feel like? No pressure. But it's really true when you think about it, and you're the one who is often very responsible for their livelihood, their happiness, their career, etc., etc. So far more than GPs or therapists, or in fact spouses didn't come anywhere near as high as bosses, which is interesting, isn't it? I think. But then I'm married to a psychiatrist, and what can I say? I don't know. No boss, but a psychiatrist's wife, so that explains a lot, by the way, I'm sure you agree. And 70% would like their bosses to do more. So you'll be saying, well, Luke, how on earth are we going to know what to do? So I got a few pointers for you in the very small amount of time I've got allotted. Some of these you'll come across before. Empathy is the key one. Just thinking about other people, trying to think what it's like to be in other people's shoes a bit more. You may come across the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is feeling sorry for someone when something bad happens. Empathy is thinking what it's like to be in their shoes, and it's a really useful management technique. Give them a reason to care. Give them a reason to enjoy doing the work, not necessarily to be jumping up and down and singing the company's song like they do at Honda, but a reason to understand how they feel part of the mission. They may be doing a very small part, maybe a mundane part, But if they can see how it fits in to the mission and the vision, then that's always going to mean that they can more like to turn up at work understanding that the bit they do makes your eventual profit. And I think that's really, really helpful. What else can you do? You can be present, you can be there, you can be wandering around, you can be accessible, your door can be always open, or at least as open as possible. You can make sure that the business provides opportunities to learn and develop. And that's not always about promotion, but it can just be learning more, developing new skills, whether they're soft skills or hard skills or whatever. Many of us have a yearning to keep developing, whether it's in small ways or larger, and perhaps there's extra things you can do there. Provide more choice and more autonomy where you can. That's something which always makes people happier and more likely to hang around, to the extent that you can. And I think the best thing is to make it more normal to discuss mental health issues. Model it yourself and your leadership team. Have people discuss things like stress and whether anyone's ever had any depression or struggles. Because the more that management model that this is something that we can talk about and we don't get struck down by lightning, we don't get shamed as a result. And I've noticed, Tim, you in the SBA, you've led this. You've talked even those those first COVID online meetings where you talked about this is a safe space to share anything. That itself is modelling a sort of psychological understanding. You don't have to be a psychology graduate just to be able to make it okay to recognise that people may be going through a tough time. In terms of spotting it, I think before I just give you my bullet points, has anyone got anyone trained via the Mental Health First Aiders certificate in your business? That's great. Hopefully, whoever's done it, whether it's you or a colleague, has come back and said it's really useful. I think it's on average about a 2-day course, and it's not that expensive. And it's a really, really useful resource. Poor mental health in the workplace is only going to go up and up and up. It's only going to cause you more cost in terms of absence, more morale problems, therefore more productivity problems, and in some cases, where people like I come in, more legal problems if you need to exit someone or manage their low absence. So it's only going to be beneficial to invest yourselves more in mental health, and Mental Health First Aiders, great course. And this is I've tried to capture the sort of things that the course teaches in a few seconds. Looking for people who perhaps are in a persistently sad or empty mood is probably the easiest one. Uncharacteristic behaviour you may have heard about, people that suddenly start looking different, dressing different, not shaving, not looking after their appearance, low levels of engagement in the work when usually it's more, decreases in productivity. You might not know a huge amount about their eating or sleeping behaviours, but if they start looking exhausted or they start missing their lunch, that might be something to look out for. General loss of interest in day-to-day activities. Perhaps they're obsessed with a hobby and they stop talking about it or they don't do it anymore. Their absence has increased. They want to work different patterns. They might be rather withdrawn if there are any social occasions or just social chit-chat. And generally is there a sense of hopelessness or helplessness. Again, you're not psychiatrists, but if you and your colleagues can be tuned in a little bit more to notice this isn't quite normal, I wonder what's going on, then often that can be a huge help and can often be the way in which they get encouraged to go and seek help. And in terms of what you can do, you've probably heard this one, ask, how are you? And then if you're not convinced, ask it again, how are you really? And it's amazing how often you get a different response. I would say 75% at least of the time you will get a different response. Yeah? And you need to have that look in your eye, which means I actually care, as opposed to I'm just box ticking. But you're all lovely people. But there's obviously a time and a space to talk, so you don't grab them by the elbow on the shop floor or as you're walking the other way into a meeting. There's an opportunity to chat. It may be that you can see that you'd like to have a chat with them or they'd like to have a chat with you, and then you say, come and find me at lunchtime or whenever it is. Gentle questions. If I can boil down counselling and psychotherapy into one phrase, it would be this. You could say, I've noticed that, And then you could describe any of the things on those lists I gave you. Something's different, you're sad, or you're whatever. And I wonder if. And the wondering if can be very gentle, just wondering how you are, wondering if something's up, or wondering if you're feeling low. Yeah? I noticed that and I wonder if. Hopefully no one's got a counselling degree here and will shout at me. But ultimately, that's it. It's offering a reflection back to how you perceive them and then just gently inquiring as to what's going on. That is a sentence or a phrase which can produce hundreds of thousands of useful conversations every day in businesses up and down the country and can help. Active listening techniques, just Google it. I haven't got time. It's very easy. In fact, I noticed and I wonder if it's half of it, but they're really, really easy. Managing your own feelings and worries is important. It's not contagious. If someone's a bit depressed, they are not going to infect you with it. If you chat to them, they're also unlikely to go and commit suicide. Okay? So don't worry. If someone's feeling miserable or they have other mental health problems, they're far more likely to be delighted that you've noticed and that you want to chat with them than something awful is going to happen. So don't worry about it too much. Just be calm and be interested. And of course, then if you're worried, you and your colleagues are worried about someone who might actually go and harm themselves, then the usual things to say are, can you be safe? Is there someone you can be with at home? Who knows about it? Can you go and see your GP? Please tell me when you have so I can feel better about it. There's always the Samaritans. You know how to get hold of them. Can I help you find a therapist? Many of the reasons why people don't go to find a therapist or a counsellor is, well, I didn't know where to look. It's very easy for you or a colleague to help them. There's two main organisations, BACP and UKCP. They're just two counselling and psychotherapy sites. It might be that a colleague having a look and finding the nearest one and finding how much they cost might be the thing that gets things moving. It might be the unblocking the block. And perhaps the business can even give an advance of earnings or even a little loan, for goodness sake, to pay. Because when someone's balking at the idea of shelling out 60 to 90 quid a week, which could be absolutely fundamental to their happiness and their family's happiness, they might not have that cash readily, but perhaps the business could do something about it. And other cheaper versions are available, by the way. Probably somewhere between 40 and 90 quid for a weekly session. The online ones tend to be cheaper. There could be some adjustments, whether or not this person has a disability, and we're thinking about reasonable adjustments under the Equality Act. Nevertheless, a good employer will always try and be flexible. Is there something temporary you could do so you don't have to commit yourself too much? Can you be flexible with absence management? Can you be flexible with duties and so on? And if things are looking serious, then I recommend always you go for an occupational health report. And if you'd like to talk about that and where to get it, give me a call and I'll happily talk you through. So that's just a very brief tour, and I'm probably overdone my thing, but Tim did say try and talk about post-employment restrictions. Perhaps this is really just an advert for next time. But I will very happily talk to you about confidential business information and intellectual property next time, which ultimately involve good clauses in your contracts, and then everything else about poaching clients, colleagues, key suppliers, work of competitor is going to involve rather meaty wording, so-called post-termination covenants, restrictive covenants in your contracts, which are probably just for your key and your senior people. And there are various ways of doing that. But I will save the utter joy of that for next time, unless any of you want to nab me in the bar afterwards, but I'll happily talk for as long as you want, until you glaze over, or pat me on the arm and ask me to stop. So it's been lovely to see you. It's more serious this time, but and by the way, this is because I've been in court this morning, not just because I want to look smart, although it's always a joy.
Did you get off?
Yeah. Oh, Tim. I love you, Tim. You're such a wag. Right. I'm done. Thank you very much. It's lovely to see you.